Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the ITGS committee meeting for June 12th. Councilman Smith, I'm joined by Councilman Blumenfield. We'll begin. We have a quorum present. For the purposes of general public comment, we have two speakers. It's Mr. Previn present. Okay, no, he's not here. Mr. Spindler, for general public comment, and you had a couple cards on a couple items, 3 minutes.
I was trying to follow your new rule that you could give me Mr. Previn's time and then I could submit his comments orally.
That's your rule, not ours.
That's the new rule.
Yeah, that's your rule.
Okay. God, Lord. Okay, good. Well, just too bad Mommy Monica's not here, but she's probably in the other committee. Now, let's see, the feasibility of expanding the stations and parks. Yeah, item 1, this is super important. You want to have working water fountains. Now, in the Van Nuys City Council building that we have our meetings every other month, all the water fountains were broke, but Mommy, the other Mommy, which is Mommy Nuri, had them all fixed. So when you go to these parks, you know, you see these broken water fountains. So what's happening is that there will be an ADA lawsuit that's pending, and that's the reason why, in anticipation of litigation, make this a top priority. Fix all the water fountains. Because I know that, you know, I've been going around checking which one's gone. So you look at CD3, I did a check of Bob Blumenfield. There, Mommy! Okay, so now she's there. So the thing is that there's good news. In CD3, all the water fountains in the park, they did work next to Welby Way and all that places. So Bob gets an A-. But in other areas where the poor are, they're getting an F-. So remember that the homeless need to have a place to bathe. They need a place also, and they use water fountains to wash their clothes. They use them also as urinals too, which is also a good thing. And that's the friendly amendment that Monica's going to have, which is good, is that she's going to move that the homeless will be allowed to use all the water fountains as urinals until such time as the city gets those new portable potties. I sort of a kind of a weird motion, but I will support it. I'm sure you will. And of course that you enjoy, especially in Chatsworth, and Mr. Englander always used to say that he used to find it interesting how people would take these steps up and would urinate in all of the water fountains and then flush them like a toilet. I thought it was very good. No defecating, just urinals, because that's the best that we can give with $641 million in HHH money. That's the best that Monica Rodriguez could come up with. So that's why I'm going to leave it up to Bob. We're going to leave it up to you to figure out if you can tell us where the $641 million of the $2 billion of HHH money went that we don't have potties. So we will make our urinals out of our water fountains. And I think this guy deserves a hand. I think that's it. And this is just in, is that Greg Smith has decided to run for mayor of Los Angeles on this platform, and Herb Wesson has endorsed him along with Jan Perry, and he's done the same. So very good, excellent, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Okay.
Thank you for keeping the language respectful. Appreciate it.
Oh, man, with you, 100%. I'm good. I'm going to get it.
Okay, moving on. We have, if it pleases the council members, we have 2, 3, 4, and 7. We can move as. Sorry, what? We already did. No. No, he wasn't here. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're officially closing public comment. So, and again, 2, 3, 4, and 7, we can move on consent if there's no objection. Item number 6 has a correction to be read into the record, so if we could call number 6 and with the correction, please.
Hi, Michael Mendoza with GSD Real Estate. Good afternoon. This is an amendment to correct the option period on the MSC report to reflect 3 5-year options. It was a technical error, but it was correctly reflected on the attached CBA. So it's just that quick amendment.
So that's read into the record. Any questions? concerns? That being the case, we will move that forward with approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And move to item number 1.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a motion, Rodriguez Martinez, relative to the feasibility of introducing and expanding hydration stations at parks and municipal facilities and identifying existing water fountains in these locations and the feasibility of converting them to include hydration stations to facilitate the use of reusable water bottles. This motion was also referred to Health, Education, Neighborhoods, Parks, Arts, and River Committee.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to invite, I know we have David. Is David here? I don't see. Oh, India's here. Sorry. Okay. So India Griffin from Building Maintenance Division for GSD, Raul Leon, Principal Grounds Maintenance Supervisor for Rec and Parks, and David Rahimian from DWP. Also, Jonathan, are you here as well? Yeah, thank you. Okay, Jonathan Leon. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing this item, and thank you all for being here on this. You know, I know through many of our travels, I know you and a number of us travel a number of different cities, and one of the items that I've noticed in a number of other cities is the accessibility to some of the public water facilities, the hydration stations, where folks can refill their reusable containers for, you know, I know some of the water fountains are kind of a thing of the past now. We all have our reusable containers and whatnot, but some of these accessible water facilities, we've got the best water in the state of California here with thanks to the Department of Water and Power, and wanted to look at what our prioritization and efforts could be to coalesce all of the different agencies, primarily Rec and Parks, with DWP and GSD to identify a priority list of where we could start installing these, making them accessible, and accelerating that timeline. Obviously, we're making a lot of investments with our parks departments, with our city-owned facilities, and wanted to see where we could accelerate the process to make more of our wonderful DWP water available for the general public. And so I wanted to thank you all for your participation here today and looking ahead to where we're going to go forward in implementing this process. So excited to hear from you all to kind of get an understanding of where we are as a baseline from this and where we hope to go. So I don't know which one of you might want to kick it off. Want to start with?
I'm Jonathan Leung, Assistant Director of Water Quality at LADWP. So again, thank you for acknowledging the high quality water that we are able to deliver to the residents, and also for the very forward-looking motion there, understanding that particularly in light of the warm weather the past week, it's very important that we get the clean, reliable tap water to all our community residents, and at the same time, trying to target plastic bottle waste reduction. So I think the hydration station would be a key cog in helping to address and advance those two things. I think in the past 6 months, we have had an opportunity as far as a partnership to meet with the General Services Division and also Rec and Parks, as well as with some support from the Mayor's Office. We've had probably about 5 or 6 meetings to better strategize and frame how we can try to achieve what you have outlined for us. I think we've been able to touch base on some of the key concepts, and I think ideally we will try to capture essential elements of that in a memorandum of understanding that we would enter to between LADWP, the General Services Division, and Recreation and Parks, so that we can make sure we clarify roles and responsibilities, address certain key topics such as resources, financial or labor resources, make sure we talk about performance requirements and ideally the equipment specifications that would be ideal, and even talking about things like longer term, if there's repair or maintenance required, or even maybe some logos or branding that we want to do as a city, how we can best do that. So I think that would be a cornerstone piece, is having that memorandum of understanding, so that rather than give you all an hour summary of all the things that took place in those past meetings, we're able to kind of coalesce all that together. So that's one item I think we're definitely working on. I do understand there's been some other support. There's other motions now. They're all in the same, achieving towards the same thing, as well as I think some high-level targets now we've reached with the Mayor's Office as far as some quantifiable targets we want to get. And I think we would say those are at a minimum, at a baseline, but we do have, I think, gelling in terms of what we want to be able to get to. So With that, I'll turn it over to India if she wants to add anything.
India Griffin, GSD. I can just add that we are currently in the process of evaluating our buildings and making determinations of which drinking fountains that currently exist would be the best match for changing it out, retrofitting it, or replacing it to a hydration station. Things that we're taking into consideration is public access. If it's a high-travel area where the public is going to frequent it, we're putting that as a priority on our list. Once we finish that list, we'll be better able to determine what we're looking at as far as numbers of how many. And we have been working with DWP to enter into an MOU to try to make sure that everybody's on the same page moving forward when we start this program.
Thank you. I actually want to
Question?
just note, so my only ask is that we preserve the non-functioning water fountain that is located within the suite of the Board of Public Works, which I have named in honor of Brad Pitt, who attempted to use it when he was visiting. And he made the public declaration that, oh, this is because of the drought. So it's dated and framed. So I think that's kind of a historic part of that I'd like to preserve, my own personal point of privilege, but again, and I know for GSD, and GSD's just gone, the installation, for example, even on EVs, right? All the EV charging stations. I know there's, this is going to be this is kind of the next layer when we talked about the same level of effort that GSD and Rec and Parks have been collaborating on, for example, with DWP. All the same partners, when we talked about EV charging stations, we're now going to be talking about publicly accessed water hydration stations. And so, you guys are practiced at this. This is just a new level of, or this is just a different area, if you will. But in terms of our water infrastructure, I mean, it would seem to me that we are pretty well suited with some, as it relates to GSD for identifying some of the kind of low-hanging fruit with some of our facilities.
Yeah, I believe we are, and DWP actually has educated us a bit on exactly where to locate if we're going to install new hydration stations as opposed to just retrofitting. They want them, as close as possible to their main source. But yeah, we are, as far as our infrastructure, pretty well suited to go ahead and start this type of program once we've identified, where the most need is. Also, your drinking fountain, we actually have a lot of drinking fountains in City Hall that are of historic significance that we're not allowed to touch. We found that out the hard way by trying to touch one of them, and we were told to put it back quite promptly. So we now
Well, the
know.
Brad Pitt one gets to stay.
That one's extra
Okay.
special.
Yes, it is extra special. Rec and Parks.
Well, thank you very much. Raul Leon with Department of Recreation and Parks. And yes, as has been stated, we are working on a memorandum of understanding to clarify what the responsibilities will be within the departments that we've been working with. Our department has already started the process of, even before the motion had been enacted, in regards to already installing hydration stations as we look at new projects or, drinking fountains that were outdated and fit that criteria where we want to be able to serve our customers out in our park system that we do, replace those. So approximately, we've done about 88 of them in our park system. We have about 1,100 drinking fountains in our parks that I'm sure that we will be able to meet what's been said in the motion to meet those goals.
So in terms of what you've procured, and I look forward to seeing the list of the parks where they are currently installed, but in terms of the procurement process, there's different vendors, obviously, and you each, I'm guessing, have different vendors that have been utilized, or I don't know if GSD probably hasn't procured any as of yet?
We actually have.
Oh, you have? Okay.
We have tested a few
Uh-huh.
areas of the city, and we are using GSD contracts for procurement.
Okay.
If I can elaborate on that a little bit, is in our park system, since we deal with a lot of vandalism, there are specific standards that our construction division is more susceptible to using because of the part replacement, as well as how they hold up to the vandalism in a lot of our parks. So
Yeah.
we're working with DWP and, also with our construction divisions to determine which of the different types of drinking fountains will be the ones that we'll be using. There's a specific one that we've been using, but we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page in regards to which ones will be selected for the purpose of making sure that they last out there.
So in terms of the siting of these, you mentioned that DWP has kind of laid out a rather standardized kind of approach to how to do it. Obviously, I'm going to guess is like we don't want to retrench an area to have to access a tap because we decided at this corner we should have a hydration station. We're kind of also considering our existing infrastructure because I'm guessing you haven't received any additional funding for this level of work. Is that correct?
As far as I can speak for recreation and parks, it depends on our parks. There might be some infrastructure that may need to be changed, but not major work. Like I mentioned previously, when we have changed out, older drinking fountains to, the new hydration stations, there isn't that much work involved. So the infrastructure is basically there at most of our parks.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is something that my colleagues and I share is just we have a number of priorities, and as you mentioned, I think, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. There are additional motions that are coming forward talking about this very issue. But again, I think more importantly is about being prudent, given the fiscal resources that have been made available thus far and going ahead, that we're being thoughtful and not trying to drive installations at locations that would be cost prohibitive, where we could potentially be rolling out a far greater number if we were thoughtful about the existing infrastructure that could support it. And that being said, I wanted to make sure that, as we are in these conversations going forward, in particular with some of the Prop 68 efforts that we have right now going on with recreation and parks and our grant applications and with Measure A funds or any other grant opportunities that we have, that if we could identify this as a line item for that installation going forward, that it's something that we could build into the cost of some of the improvements that we want to do at some of these parks. I think it's a way for us to help fund this going forward as well.
And I think that's something that already does happen when we have new projects. That is the goal, to have a drinking fountain system, a hydration station that fits the criteria of the different users we're going to have our parks, whether it be water failure or dogs or humans that can go out there and use that.
I have to say I'm partial to the ones that I've seen in Rome, where the dogs do have their little water capture at the bottom and they have the tap. It's multi-user. I mean, it's for our pets, it's for everyone that they have that, filtered and cold water access. And it's prevalent, I know, in a number of European cities, but I don't want to, any of my colleagues wanted to jump in on this conversation at all.
Well, I know that when we redid the Shoup Park in my district about a year and a half ago, they put in the hydration station next to the new building, but next to the ball fields, there's still the old water fountains, which is fine, it works out great. You can fill up your water bottle at a certain location, but you still have the old pipe-looking water fountains.
And I think our goal is to eventually replace all those as they fail, because obviously they're not suited for what our goals are going to be in the future.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Okay. Yeah. So the only other question I just had quickly is, I know the mayor's sustainability plan now includes, seeking to achieve a certain number of these. How do you kind of see in terms of resources? Have you guys identified in order to fulfill that goal what level of resources and where you're at currently in the installations and in comparison to where we hope to be?
I'll respond.
You got the microphone, so
You got the mic.
We have been working on that. We are currently, our department, Recreation and Parks, is working on a inventory of all our drinking fountains to identify those. We'll be sharing that with our partners, and then also what we are going to be identifying are the actual hydration stations that we have installed.
Okay.
So that information will be coming forth, and we'll be sharing that with
Great.
our partners.
Great. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to go ahead and amend the motion to instruct the Department of General Services Recreation and Parks and the Department of Water and Power, with the assistance of the CAO and CLA, to report back to this committee in 60 days with the following information: the current criteria for the site selection and process for installation, the recommendations for eligible sites at municipal facilities and parks, and the cost estimate of installation, maintenance, and any related costs. And that includes as it relates to the filtration and cooling stations.
You don't need to write that down, we'll get it to you.
We'll get it to you.
Seeing that, Mr. Blumenfield seconds, that being approved, okay. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
We'll move forward with that, thank you.
Thank you.
That leaves us with items 5 and 8, and we can hear them together. If you call 5 and 8, please.
Thank you. Item
Public hearings. We've already done the public hearings. We already did. You weren't here when we called you. That's not our fault. So we already called you, you weren't here. You please be seated. Folks, come forward. You were called. Items 5 and 8 are called.
Thank you. Item 5 is a Municipal Facilities Committee report relative to the recommendations for authorizations related to the Clean Water Campus at 303 North San Fernando Road. And item number 8 is a City Attorney report relative to approving an agreement with Nossaman LLP to assist the City Attorney in providing legal
Folks
services
in the back, please be quiet as you leave.
related to the Bureau of Sanitation's Clean Water Campus Building and Parking Project.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Who's up first? Okay.
Item 5 is a report from the Municipal Facilities Committee. On the April meeting of the Municipal Facilities Committee, it requests various authorizations regarding the Clean Water Campus project, which is an endeavor from the Bureau of Sanitation. Approval of the report would simply provide directions to the City Attorney's Office to enable the city to engage in negotiations with a third party, as well as to report back on the status of those negotiations. There is quite a bit of information in the report, but at this time, the information is, it will change once we begin negotiations. Sorry, go ahead.
And Matthias Farfan for CLA's office. And just to provide some context, Sanitation received a letter from Goodwill. It was an unsolicited offer, and this simply is now authorizing city staff to engage regarding that unsolicited offer. But Sanitation's here and City Attorney to provide more information on the project.
Good afternoon, Adi Pusti, Bureau of Sanitation and Environment. The city of LA and LA Sanitation has 5 of divisions of the 21 divisions currently at Media Center, which is a leased space on San Fernando Road. The sanitation has been at that location since 2002, and because of our services are growing, we need to expand, and we are kind of short of space at where we are. We are currently at 350 positions, the staff member, and the site does not allow for more than that. However, we are currently at 385 and projected to grow with the new services that we are providing to a little bit more than 400. So not only that, also the fact that we wanted a permanent home for our 5 divisions, we started looking at options, what is available to the Bureau for us to have a permanent home. First, we looked at the existing location to purchase that. However, this is not viable because it's not big enough to accommodate, so that was ruled out. We also looked at other areas within, or the facilities within our area to see if it's available. That didn't pan out because there was not enough, large enough facility in that vicinity, in that area to accommodate. So we started looking at our property that the sanitation owns on Humboldt and San Fernando. The site is across the street from Goodwill Industries. So, and Goodwill has a vacant lot which they use as a parking adjacent to ours. So we approached Goodwill to see if we can purchase their property to use it as parking while we develop our site. However, Goodwill was not, at that time, did not want to sell, and they did not entertain the idea. Later on, they came back and they kind of offered to partner with us and develop this new facility along with their parking structure and relocate their retail store and their training from across the city of San Fernando to this new location and use that vacated spot as low-income housing. And they put in a non-solicited offer for that, which we looked at. We hired the sanitation, hired Arcadis Consulting to look at the feasibility, and if it's feasible to go through this partnership. And then here we are. Because of that possibility that we have, we'd like to ask city attorney's assistance to prepare a term sheet so we can start negotiation with them and they can just complete that study.
Good afternoon. Adina Hopenstand, City Attorney's Office. I'm here to speak on number 8, and I'm also happy to answer any questions about the P3 development kind of concept or alternative delivery concept that's also addressed in item number 5. But to dovetail on what Mr. Pusti was saying, because of the unsolicited offer and the nature of the offer and the nature of the Clean Water Campus development as being a proposed P3 project, design, build, finance, operate, maintain, there are some unique legal implications and financial implications that really require someone with relevant expertise. And for that purpose, we are requesting outside counsel assistance on this project to be paid for out of the same sanitation fund that is funding the underlying project as well.
Very good. Question, first of all, I'm familiar with the property because I remember Mr. Reyes wanted that moved many times and never got that done. But what will happen then to the truck servicing area that's currently there? Are you going to close it and move it then? Because it sounds like you're going to really intensify the use of the property.
There is no truck use area. There is sanitation owns 2 properties in that area. One is on San Fernando Road, which is for our solid resources, and there is this other property which is on Humboldt and San Fernando. That is currently vacant.
Okay, good. Very good. And so all the financial information will come back when you actually have a negotiated term sheet.
Correct.
So we'll know all the details later. But it will come out of the sanitation fund, theoretically, at least at this point.
Yes.
All right. And parking lot, well, it's kind of hard to tell until you actually get around to doing that, but are there going to be enough parking places for all your personnel with what Goodwill wants to do as well?
So that's what really this P3 comes about, because the area that sanitation has also does not accommodate enough space for the parking. So that partnership is really important for us to be able to at least see if it's feasible to share the parking with them.
Okay.
Yes, but it will.
And as you vacate some of these other properties then to move people to this site eventually, will that save us some money on leases elsewhere?
Of course. We are currently leasing that media center, and once this permanent house that area will be vacated.
Great. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple questions. Was there any analysis done about whether the LA Street Civic Center building was a viable location for sanitation?
Jackie Wagner, CEO. Yes, there was. Unfortunately, the lease termination for the Media Center Group is an entire year ahead of the time that we're scheduled to complete the new building. And so in addition to having more people than will fit in the LA Street building, the timing of their lease and the need to find a target location is another reason that warranted us having to go to another facility, or build a facility.
So you have more people than could fit into that building, because that building's pretty big.
The LA Street building?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. We, not to go off on a tangent here, but there are close to 6,000 people that are within the 1.7-mile radius of the Civic Center that would require placement in either the LA Street building or in additional other office towers. So we can only accommodate a portion of the people that have been identified in our space surveys. And in our initial, the stacking scenarios that we've looked at, that we'll be discussing further in another report, did not envision the media center folks in the stacking.
And then is there a third party in this in terms of developing, because you don't think of Goodwill as putting together a DBFOM and doing this kind of development. At least I usually don't think of them. I think of them in terms of their service work. And it's fairly complicated what you're talking about, what they're proposing to do as a partnership. Are they doing it on their own, or do they have some developer that's with them that's making this happen, or how is that working?
We're negotiating with Goodwill, but I think everybody understands that they're going to need appropriate people to do the construction design, operation, and maintenance of the project. So how it's going to ultimately look, I cannot say yet. That will also be fleshed out as we proceed with the negotiations. But right now, our partner is Goodwill, and whether Goodwill...
Well, I'm assuming that they've got to have somebody already with them putting this together. They didn't come up with this on their own necessarily, and so we should understand who we're negotiating with.
Very fair comment, and that's something that will be fleshed out as we move forward for sure. And I would say it's a fair assumption that Goodwill has identified other partners that it plans to work with on this project, should we all move forward.
Right, and then obviously we'll see all that moving forward. Now, there's a business inclusion requirement in LAWA's DBFOM agreement for the LAMP program, the Landslide Access Modernization Program. Do you envision a business inclusion requirement in this DBFOM?
There are some differences, I think, between LAMP and this. This Clean Water Campus project, it will be really a sole source negotiation, not one that is like LAMP, where there was a request for proposals. That's normally where you will see the BIP application to the contractors. But I would say that definitely as part of the negotiations, what inclusion requirements are going to be included will be under discussion. But it's different than LAMP. It's not a request for proposal here. We're doing a sole source negotiation at this point.
Right, but at the same time, there's going to be a ton of subcontractors and others, and we've sort of set the bar that we have this business inclusion.
Sir, if I could. We are meeting with Bureau of Con Ed and Mr. Reamer, and so those will all be a part of the negotiations. The potential to incorporate PLAs, project labor agreements, as well as local targeted hire and other programs.
All right. I think what I'll do is I'm going to actually make it easier for you and add an amendment recommending that we set a business inclusion requirement. Still let you guys figure out what it will look like and all of that, but rather than leaving it to chance, we want to put that out at first. I'll move that. If I can get a second.
It's to number 5. Adding that to number 5.
Adding to number 5, yeah.
Yes.
Seconded by Ms. Rodriguez. Okay, Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you. Are you?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So as it relates to number 8 and the retention of Nossaman, is Nossaman also the one that we used for the Civic Center in terms of the?
No, we're not using Nossaman for the Civic Center, but I'm sorry.
Oh, well, that answers your direct question. Nossaman has been engaged in other projects, P3 projects, and also
Perfect,
delivery design projects for the city. And Nossaman was a proposer in the Civic Center project. And in order to make the selection that is before you today, we did conduct a basically mini RFP piggybacking off of the Civic Center RFP.
And on the operation and maintenance, have we fleshed out all the conversations that could be potentially coming back on that?
So that would be part of our negotiations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good.
That being the case, if then, as we have amendment to number 5, which was offered, that we would approve the MFC recommendations with the amendment, Mr. Blumenfeld's amendment. Seeing no objection, that'll be the order. Pardon me? We already called you, sir, and you were not here. I did.
Public comment's already closed.
Public comment's been. That's correct. Public comment has been closed. On item number 8, then we approve the city attorney's recommendation to approve the contract with Nossaman LLP. Seeing no objection, that'll be the order. And that is the conclusion of today's agenda. If there's no further issues before us, thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Eric, if you aren't here when you are...